Hello Internets! My name is Jared Hardy, and I'm the founding director of the Data Roads Foundation. Whenever I try to talk to people about the Data Roads Foundation, a couple of questions usually come up right away. Some people don't understand that data roads are just another way of describing the Internet and its underlying principles. If the person does already know who Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn are, and that these fathers of the Internet describe Internet protocols as the rules of the road, then they ask me about how data roads are related to net neutrality. If the person asking doesn't really know much about the Internet, then I have to explain how it really works before I start getting into net neutrality. Even people who work on network technologies every day don't understand how this whole Internet transport thing really works. I personally like to call it common carriage market neutrality, but net neutrality is catchier. Internet packets are digital versions of these intermodal containers and should be subject to the same common carriage rules as all other freight services are. As our nonprofit's name implies, the Internet is a lot like a system of roads that are built just to carry your data around. We call them data roads for short. I've highlighted a few of the Internet paths here to show how they interconnect like roads and intersections. It's not the cleanest road grid ever, but calling them roads makes a lot more sense than calling this a series of tubes or some other silly analogy. Now, you may look at the spidery things around the edges and think, what are those? You might take one look at the lower right at that zoomed in set and think, that doesn't look like any intersection I would ever want to drive through. And I wouldn't blame you. Those intersections are where your current ISP bottlenecks all your Internet traffic before letting it onto the railroad system or the information superhighway. There's a few historical reasons for that. The biggest reason is this was just the way old telephone and cable companies built their networks before the Internet came along. These were always inefficient hubs, but they worked well enough for telephones and TVs at the time they were first built, and it was cheap just to keep them that way. Another reason is that it's really easy to charge you for access at these hubs and bottlenecks. They already have their toll booths set up there from when they were just metering telephone calls or cable commercial time. When the Internet came along, they just added it to your existing toll bill. The next reason is these intersections and toll booth hubs make it a lot easier to watch what you're doing. They aren't watching you just for metered billing purposes either. Once your ISP sends all your data through their bottlenecks and toll booth hubs, they can sell information about your activities to the highest bidders. Sometimes they sell it to advertisers, and sometimes they sell it all to governments who never signed on to any human rights laws about your right to privacy, or they stop paying attention to their own national constitution. These toll booth hubs are the core of their many armed monopolies, reaching their tendrils into every corner of your financial life. Even when you utilize secure encryption, they know where all your data traffic is going, including where you bank and where you shop every day. They're like a spy posing as a postal worker who sneaks a peek at all your mail and keeps track of the addresses on your envelopes whenever the glue holds too well to open the envelope. They're now rich enough to buy your national government and their regulators. They write their own rules, consolidate into growing monopolies, and collude into cartels without remorse. Let's take another look at these toll booth hubs. Where did those easy pass lanes come from? The answer is the end of net neutrality. The trick is they don't charge you directly for those easy passes. They charge Internet services that they decide need to pay them more, even though you're already paying for all that data that you requested. It's like you drive out to pick up a rental trailer, and when you come back with the trailer hitched to your vehicle, they don't let the trailer onto their highway unless the trailer company prepays for another toll. So how do we get around this form of online extortion? The answer is in our own history. The robber barons before the First Great Depression had a similar sneaky trick for cheating people out of money. For example, a big oil company would also own a big train company between all their oil wells, refineries, and gas stations. Somehow, they would always get the best deals to ship their own oil, and all the competing oil companies would have to raise their prices to compensate for their higher shipping costs. Can you guess what this did to the oil market back then? The solution back then, which still works today, was to force the transport industry to use common carriage rules that the US inherited from English common law. These rules said that if you charged one company a certain price to ship a certain kind of product, then you had to charge all similar companies the same amount to ship the same kinds of products. These rules didn't really change how anyone made money, it just made transport markets more fair for everyone. That's the same thing net neutrality does for the internet. It makes it more fair and more free for all the competitive market players, including ISPs. The problem remains that net neutrality and common carriage laws won't fix these inefficient toll booth hubs on the edges of the internet right now. That's where Data Roads Foundation comes to the rescue. If you build your own data roads between neighbors and local institutions, which are represented here by the green lines, then you can route your data around those slow and costly hubs. You can actually choose the fastest and safest route whenever you have more than one route option for your data to travel on. That's what the Data Roads Foundation is all about. We want everyone to build these data roads together and bypass all these slow toll booth hubs forever. Then we can all be like this angel driving her unicorn on her own data roads that she built herself and she shares with all her friends in heaven. Will you join us, or would you like to keep paying out tolls to monopolies who spy on you forever? Which path will you take? Data Roads Foundation believes all roads should lead to all people, not just Rome. Please share this with all your friends and neighbors, and start talking about building your own data roads together. If your family is too poor to build your own data roads, our foundation will use generous donations to help you build them. If you can afford to build and buy your own data roads, you will save money by building them sooner. Get started today at dataroads.org.